When the Sega Saturn was newly released in Japan, it was very successful and soon had a library of original IPs, with one in particular doing something that wowed gamers across Japan. That game was Panzer Dragoon, a game that when launched on March 10th, 1995 was a truly mouth-opening experience. Sure, by these days the frame rate is choppy and the textures low in resolution, yet it still manages to retain some of that magic from 1995. Panzer Dragoon spans 6 levels, each ending with a boss battle. Over the course of the game, the plot is revealed through cutscenes using in-game graphics, which looked great back then. Gameplay consists of a player controlling a flying dragon and his rider through an aim-in reticle that can be moved over the screen with the D-pad. The player must shoot a variety of enemies in a 3D fantasy environment of barren landscapes and mysterious ruins of a fallen civilization. The field of vision can be directed with the aim-in reticle on the X and Y axis, but the overall direction of travel is predetermined. The dragon follows the reticle movements, allowing the player to avoid enemy projectiles and obstacles. The player has a full 360-degree field of view and can quickly look left, right, forward and behind the dragon. Enemies come from all directions, varying in size, and also appear on an on-screen radar that monitors the dragon's surroundings. 2 weapons are available during the game: the rider's handgun, which can be fired with a single button press when an enemy enters the aim-in reticle, and the homing laser fired by the dragon, which can lock onto up to 8 enemies by moving the reticle over them while holding down the fire button. Some situations with many enemies on screen require the use of the lock-on laser, while in others, quick gunshots to weak spots will prove more efficient. First port of Panzer Dragoon came to Windows 95, yet it ran perfectly on my Windows 7 system as long as the back compatibility was selected. This is a rather good port, all things considered. While the game is locked to 640 by 480 max resolution, it does run smoothly and at a much higher resolution than the Saturn original. There are a few graphical settings too, such as low, medium and high detail. I'm running in high detail here. You can also select 8 or 16-bit color. 16-bit color is what you're looking at now. Unfortunately, this is not a perfect Saturn port. There are a few rough edges when it comes to polygon warping, missing transparent effects on the laser beams, and a lack of options. But overall, I may think that this is the better version so far. By the way, I had a hell of a hard time capturing this footage. Please excuse the choppy motion. The game does not look like this in real life. It's just as smooth as the Saturn version. Technically, there are two ports of Panzer Dragoon to the PlayStation 2. They are both on the Sega Ages 2500 series, volume 27. Let's take a look at the remake first. As you can see, this is a beautiful remake of the original. The game features beautiful clean textures for the time and adds transparent effects where they were missing on the Saturn. What is odd though is the lack of transparent effect on the Dragon's laser. The original Saturn version is the only one to feature this. While this port looks really nice, it isn't without some issues. For example, the ocean floor is just a flat polygon. On the Saturn, it had a nice wave effect. This also makes the reflections look odd on the remake. Some stages have slightly different enemy placements, and some restrict your movements somewhat compared to the original. For example, in the Saturn version, you can fly closer to the tunnel ground on stage 4 than you can in this remake. Despite all the little differences, this is a great way to play Panzer Dragoon. The second port on the PlayStation 2 sells itself off as being the Saturn version. At first you may be fooled into thinking this is the Saturn game with its Saturn copyright splash screen and original Sega Presents logo. Only once the game starts do you realise that this is just the remake version using a lower resolution texture set. The port retains all the quirks of the remake, such as the flat ocean floor on stage 1, different enemy placements and so on. Still, this is a nice extra, but make no mistake, this is not the Saturn game running on a PlayStation 2. Found as a hidden extra inside of Panzer Dragoon Auto is an Xbox port of the Windows version of Panzer Dragoon. This is a reasonable port of the Windows game running on the original Xbox. Of course, with back compatibility, it will also run on the Xbox 360, Xbox One and Series X. This is Panzer Dragoon Remake that was also released on the PlayStation 4, Windows, Stadia and Switch. We are taking a look at the game running on the Xbox Series X. Now when this was originally released, it was in a sorry state indeed on all platforms. The reticle was all wrong, aiming was wrong, the game was missing details, and it was just all round unacceptable. Thankfully, after some patches, the game is in a much better state. I will say that the aiming is still not right. It feels too loose, and it's difficult to know which part of the reticle is meant to be used to lock onto an enemy. This really does hamper the gameplay. It's such a shame because the game is very pretty to look at. This version also comes with an all-new arranged soundtrack by Saori Kobayashi. It's not bad at all, but the original is still the better sounding. Another great thing about this version of the game is that all previous video sequences are now presented in real time and done very well indeed. I'll upload a separate video showcasing this soon. All those versions of Panzer Dragoon running side by side.